again. I know you all missed us, right? Because we missed you. But we're back, and we're still trying to explore purpose and discuss what your life means. Our goal is to help people understand, to help people understand that you aren't just birthed without purpose. You aren't birthed without intent. You aren't birthed without gifts, talents, and abilities. And once you get that, it's a life changer. I can tell you that for sure, because that's what I've walked in, and that's what the people around me have walked in. Now, we have an exciting guest here. We're going to try to, keep it non-political, but it's hard to do that. It's hard to be apolitical when a lot of her work has been in those arenas. She's I'd call her a 100% fan of education. I'd call her a person who shows up to do what she needs to do, how she needs to do it, no matter how long and how often she needs to do it. Is that fair? Yes. And I'm going to because I call her Toni, so I want her to introduce herself, and she has such a long list of accomplishments that I want her to highlight what she wants us to know about. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Okay, so take it over. Tell us about yourself.
So my name is Antoinette Cousins, but Morgan Cousins. But my mom, I will always say that I don't go by Antoinette because that's often when I'm in trouble as a child. I would hear Antoinette, Antoinette, and that's only if I was in trouble. So what a lot of people don't know is I changed my name when I got into middle school because everyone in the neighborhood would call me Net. But when I got in middle school, I would be taunted at the name Net, like this net around me, this net around me. So I like the name Toni, so I changed my name to Toni. And when I would come home and people would call the house, they were like, Toni, and my mom was like, who is Toni? I'm like, that's me. And she was like,
that's funny. I didn't know. I didn't even know that.
So I changed my name. Grew up, born and raised in the north part of the city. I was a trouble kid. A lot of people didn't know that either, but grew up in Walnut Park. Oftentimes gave my mom trouble always. I was the kid out of three that she was worried about. She didn't know what I was going to do or who I was going to be. Yeah, I was that challenge for her. But as I grew up, I didn't know what or who I wanted to be or what I was going to be, but someone actually did, and I was kind of told. So through life, I've gone through many things. I started off working at an organization called Caring Communities. From Caring Communities, I found myself helping people. From Caring Communities, I worked for Riverview West Florissant.
Let me say this. Just say this real quick. So she is a legacy child. Because anybody that knows anything about St. Louis, right, has heard of Caring Communities, and we know at least one of the power brokers behind Caring Communities is your mom.
Yes.
Right? So it would make sense that her heart and her passion would be for community. I didn't want to miss that opportunity to just kind of.
So Caring Communities, I was the first in my family to go to college. There was no way I was supposed to go to college. I was the last one in my family that anybody thought would be going to college.
That's how it happens, though, because that's what I did.
But I was the first. So I was the first one in my family to go away to college. I came back, and when I came back, Caring Communities, Gary Hayes, who ended up being my godfather, my mom, she was always that community engaged person.
Right.
She did so much for the community. He said, I can get her hired.
So can I take you back to something else? Okay.
The memories are coming back.
Okay, so you said you were the first to go to college, and I was the first in my family. My sister went for a year, but I was the first to go full-time and move away. It was a Carbondale, but it still moved away. How can you reflect on anything that happened in those 4 years that has...
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? How did that help propel you forward, or how did that help gain a characteristic that you might have?
So much.
Does that make sense?
So much happened, the stories. So before I went to college, I was a part of the DSEC program.
Right.
So I did go to St. Louis Public School first, from kindergarten, preschool, all the way to 8th grade. I graduated from 8th grade at Ames Middle or Elementary School, and I went on to high school. So high school was a completely different exposure for me. I went from growing up in the city to going out, exposed to a whole different element. I was growing up taught to be hard, this was tough or what have you. So I go to this high school, learning a whole different environment. 90% 90% of the people out there didn't look like me. None of the teachers were me. We had one counselor that was like us, but none of the teachers looked like me. That was the early stages of it.
Yeah.
But this one teacher prophesied it on me, and I didn't know what it was. And she was like, "You're going to help people. In life, your job is going to be to help people." I was like, "No, it's not. I want to be a fashion.
I want to beat them up.
I want to be a fashion merchandiser. I want to do this. I want to do that." She was like, "No, that's not what you're going to do." So I go to college.
That's funny.
My first year in college, my mentality is rough, hard. It's survival skills. I'm learning how to survive. I'm ready. Don't look at me. You look at me. Like, this is what I was taught. Someone else from the neighborhood was there, and he took me in like a sister.
So I want to expand on that because I have never, I know you have to have a certain amount of a tough persona, you have to pretend to be, but I've never ever thought about that.
Yep.
Because I went to Metro for one thing, so
Yeah.
I was fortunate,
Yes.
But I was just Nina. I was able to be nerdy. I was able to be whoever I was. I never thought about that switch. How do you think that switch prepared you for what you're doing now?
It completely prepared me. Okay. It transformed me because once I got to college, it was certain seeds that was placed in my space that was telling me, this ain't who you have to be. Like, you don't have to, the streets, you don't have to take that mentality, and if you continue to do that, you're not going to make it out.
Say that again, please. Go ahead.
If you continue to think, this is the life that you have to, like the hard life and being hard, the streets, trying to hustle or what have you, that if you think that is what it's going to take for you to succeed, you're not going to make it.
That's golden. Okay.
And it took me a year to really understand what they meant by that. And this, a lot of people didn't know, was during the Rodney King situation.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
So now the riots has taken place, and we're in school. So, hey, we're supposed to be rioting.
Because you don't want to be a seller. You don't want to look like the person that's sitting on the fence while everybody else is saving the world and doing what they say.
Who's the first person to get kicked out? Walnut Park, because we out here on our Black Power. So we get kicked out every day, pointing us out. You got to go. Yes.
Oh, wow.
So I get kicked out, didn't tell my mom. She ready to pack me up,
See, I know you were a renegade. I remember that coming up, but I didn't know.
Time to go, come on, it's time for you to go back to school. I was like, I got to tell you something.
I don't have a school to go to.
I was like, I can't go back. So my mom, the mom she is, packed me up, went down, talked to the dean, and he was like, college is not for everybody. And she said, but it's for her.
Right. She
And
coming
she
back
pretty
to
much
this.
demanded him to put me back in school.
I believe that.
That taught me again how to fight. Fight for the people, fight for what's right. So by then I started getting into leadership programs. We transformed. Even though we were at Central Missouri State, 90%, Caucasian school, we had a large African American, base that was there. We changed the game. To this day, we still have scholarships that we started for Central Missouri State. We brought tenure. We have the black professors there get their tenure. Like, we really transformed it. And all of this was things that I taught. So me starting to work for current communities, it was a
natural. Yeah, natural progression. Yep. Okay. See, I knew that you didn't follow in her footsteps, but you made footsteps that were, exemplary of hers.
Yes.
Right. So
And
I knew
she was the base for me, because she was always, as a child, I was always seeing her be that community person. She was the block
Absolutely.
units, the beautifications. Like, I saw that as a child.
Right.
And I was able to carry that to the next level. So my undergrad ended up being in social work. I graduated. I started doing current communities. I really started working for the people, believing and seeing what I was able to do, to the point where they called me Miss Current Communities. Because I'm like, no, we could do this. We would do drug marches, and I want to be security.
You remember the marches that you guys did? I think they started in Khatib and all the marches.
Khatib,
Yeah.
I'm security. I'm telling them I'm security. And they like, no, me and the guys do security. And I'm like, I'm doing security. They was like, Toni, get back in the line. I was like, I'm security. So I demanded. And I ended up being
So I have some questions. I want to segue a little bit. I have some questions for you. I pick one, and then you're able to pick the next one, and I want you to respond to one.
Okay.
Let's see. What is one goal you're working on that aligns with an ideal or notion of something greater than yourself? And how will it impact others if you meet this goal? Wow. I know.
One goal.
You got it. One goal that you're working on that aligns with an ideal or notion of something great. I'm really a strong purpose individual because I think that understanding my purpose or some of my purpose changed my life. So that's why we're saying, what is that one goal that you're working on?
One goal that I've really tried to work on. I think even just hearing the story that I've given about myself.
Right.
One of the biggest things that I've worked so hard on is the old Toni, the net.
I remember that.
As I talked about the
great.
net that I was, and who the challenge that I gave, that I put my mom through.
Yeah.
And I worked on that, not being that person. Sometimes a lot of what I've gone through and me wanting to help and change people, not change people, but help people, and seeing that net in people in the younger generation.
Okay, but I want to ask you something, because I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm a journalist by nature.
Yeah,
so
I love it. I love it.
You said that you want to extinguish that net. Are there things in that net, though, that you're using to help with your newfound identity and your newfound agenda?
But I had to work on that net.
Okay, good.
And working on that net, created Toni.
Good.
And working on that net, I see net in the younger generations, in the younger youth.
And you brought some of that with you, because
That I have to say, I know where you are, I know
Right.
who you are,
Right.
and let me guide you and show you, how to grow from that.
So I know with me, I still have the little Nina, right? The insecure and the things that I did not want in my life. I still have that. But it also helps. That's what I'm saying. It also helps that I still have some of that in my belly. I try to control it a little bit.
Triggers.
But I took it with me to, I hope, an improved Nina. So I guess what I'm at, did you take some of that with you?
I did.
Because we don't want kids to think everything in you is wrong.
I took the good sides, and I don't want to say wrong, and I don't want to say the good, the bad. I took the
Productive, maybe.
productive, but I monitored and started watching and understanding the angry.
That's good. Say that again.
I understood the angry, like why was I so angry? And oftentimes we are angry all the time. We are hurt, we're angry, and we don't understand the why. And if you don't understand the why, you continue to be stuck in that space.
Which is why we talk about purpose a lot.
Which is why you talk about
your
purpose.
why is not everybody else's why. That's
There
right.
you go. And my why helps me to understand others.
That's rich.
And that helps me to help others, and that's my goal. So even through all the challenges that I'm in, even all the obstacles, all the attacks that I'm constantly faced with, that's what I always ask myself. What is my why?
Right, exactly.
And how do I use that to help, like those that I'm supposed to help? And a lot of people are like, oh, Toni, I just, I feel so sorry for you. I don't, because I'm not doing this.
You're doing what you're supposed to be doing in the space that you're
I
supposed to do it
know I'm
in.
a servant.
Absolutely.
Like I had to
Absolutely.
understand that, and I didn't. Like as a person from the hood, I say I didn't understand and know what that means. But it took me back to that person who told me, they prophesied on me. Like, no, you're going to help people.
Right.
That stuck with me. Like 20, 30 years ago, I didn't understand what that meant, but I totally get it now.
And one of the things I think that I believe that that's been kind of my mantra is I'm doing what I'm doing now. That does not mean I'll be doing what I'm doing later. But that also does not mean that those two things aren't connected to purpose.
Nope.
Because purpose doesn't look the same every year, every century. You know what I mean? So I think that's freeing, what you said. But I also think it's really freeing to say you are allowed to be angry.
Yes.
It's how you manage that anger.
It's how you deal.
So that's
with it.
beautiful,
Yes.
the way you said that, because
Yes.
we want to fix people
Yeah,
and
you
get
can't-
rid of
no,
anger.
No,
Anger
It's
can be
okay.
productive
It's
if it's
okay.
used the right way.
And
Absolutely.
that's what I had to learn.
Yep.
It's okay, and it's how you deal with it.
There's a movie, It's Okay Not to Be Okay.
Exactly.
Right. But the journey is to be okay enough to do what you're purposed to do.
Yep.
I think, would
And
you agree
to
with that?
understand it.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Most people don't understand it because they run from it.
Right.
That's where you're challenged with.
And I think that's what especially with young adult ministry, when you say purpose, they're like, but once they understand, once you're able to say, that's your special gift, this is where you shine. When you
Yes.
speak in public, you nail it. When you design something, you nail it. When you know what I mean? So that's why I've always been very heavy on purpose. Not that everything has to fit in that little box called purpose, but that's where you shine. That's where you grow. That's where you give the most to you.
Yes.
And that's what you're talking about. You're saying, this is my comfort zone. This is what, it comes naturally. You wake up
It does.
with it, and you go to bed with it.
Yep.
So tell me how knowing, we'll get back to it. Tell me how having an inkling of your purpose and understanding what it entails and being willing to flow and grow with it has changed your outcomes and your productivity. Does that make sense?
It's changed.
Or even how you think about things.
Honestly, it can become lonely sometimes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And it could become foggy.
Right, absolutely.
Because you start questioning yourself. And you're not understanding, what is surrounding you. You're being challenged.
Right.
Well, I found myself being challenged, like, what am I doing? Like, you know or you believe what you're doing is the right thing,
Yep.
but you're constantly being tested.
And when you say you believe what you're doing is the right thing, it's a lonely journey.
It's a
if you're
lonely
really
journey.
trying to do purpose.
It's a lonely
because you could be a trailblazer. Nobody has done it like you. Right? So you can't go and say, well, Susie did it that way. Bob did it that way, so I guess I'm doing the thing right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
It can become lonely. You can second guess yourself, but you have to. And to me, I think that's where faith comes in.
Yes.
That's where, and I mean, it's hard.
If you know your sweet spot, like I know, when I shine. And the more I know it, the more people say, oh, you should be, you just did that.
Yes.
And so you get that confirmation.
Yes.
So you think, okay, I'm in my lane.
Yes.
There's some things I have to do outside of my lane, but when I'm in my lane, I'm doing that thing, right? And I can see that. I'm not that much older than you, I don't think. But I watched you growing up, and I watched Pamela Jr. Doing her thing, and not with a vengeance, but in a when you worked for, yeah, I'll just say that. When you worked for him, Greg, I saw you doing your thing. I saw you matriculating into this powerful woman,
And I think with that, I was always, like you saying, my purpose, I loved being behind the scene. Like, I've never had a desire to be in front. I've always wanted to, and that's what the growth, all of the things like.
So how are you handling,
I
obviously you're not, you're not behind.
Hate it.
Let's just get that out there.
Never had a desire, but I had to understand.
Right.
That was not, this is where I was to be.
It's preparatory.
I have no desire, I was like, no, I don't want, that's not where I want, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't my decision.
Come on.
The more I didn't want it, the more I was put in, it was like your time. This is where you are to be. This is the place that you are positioned to be at this point in time.
Absolutely.
I've always been behind the scenes. I'm okay. I was okay with it.
I understand.
But it was no, this is where I have you to be.
And I think that's indicative of purpose, because I can't believe I'm sitting here now being recorded.
Exactly.
I can't delete it. I can't edit it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just talking, because I was never an in front of the camera person.
Never the desire.
When my pastor said, you need to go in the pulpit, I was like, I'm not doing that.
Yes.
I don't know how to preach a sermon. So I think the discomfort is a ingredient in purpose.
Yes.
Would you agree with
Yes,
that? The more
absolutely.
discomfort, the more
Absolutely.
you're being primed, I guess, for what you're supposed to do.
And you never understand or know who's watching you.
Exactly. That's good. Yeah. That's true.
Who's watching you? Like I've said, my daughter.
I can't even think about that. Why'd you put that out
I'm
there?
just telling you.
I don't even entertain who's watching
that
me.
are really watching you and that are really following you. So you have to be really careful and cautious. And that's that net that I don't want. Like that's the Toni I know I have to bring and keep intact.
But I'm going to suggest something to you about that though. So I'm not I don't beat up people and stuff like that, but I am very clear when someone has either offended me or taken advantage of me. Working for the state of Missouri for all these years in Jeff City. So I remember several times following people out of the conference room because I was the first female and black individual on the director's team in the director's office, right? So I got a lot of hits. And I remember sometimes following somebody saying, if you ever cut me out, like, you know, so I wasn't passive, but I do understand that that served me well because other doors kept opening. That's how I got to where Clinton Gore. You know what I'm saying? So some of that spice.
Yeah, not for me in the position.
Yeah, well, your spice might be stronger than mine was, you know, but.
Yeah, my spice wasn't what got me. You're right. Some of that spice was.
It shifts the atmosphere is what I'm suggesting.
You're not going to disrespect me, but my spice was ensuring that I was protecting the people.
And it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was with me because if you're the first, then absolutely, if you show up right, then they know they can show up right.
Yes.
So not everything was a battle, but I think sometimes
most of the time it was.
You have to be able to say, that's not appropriate.
Exactly.
And if you
don't do that.
And you know what happened with that? I went across the street and I talked to some of Mel Carnahan's staff because I knew them from working the campaign. We were friends, and they said, if they're doing this to Nina,
exactly.
Imagine what they're doing. So that's how.
And
so we're saying the same thing.
My mentor told me, if we send you you're the person. If you've been sent in a room, then you got the best. Then the deal is the best deal we're going to get, and that means a lot.
Yes,
so you know that you, Nina, are representing all of us, and so I had to know that Toni is.
Choice.
Yeah,
you know that. I mean, you don't have to be hellfire and marching and screaming, and I just think it's the nature of the beast.
That's what I had to keep telling myself. It's how you present yourself and how you carry yourself.
But I'm probably not as, in retrospect, I probably wasn't as calm as I am now. But
that's
it's hard to be the first.
Yeah,
it's hard to.
Why I think us loved being behind the scene, because I could be like, no, this is what you do. This is what you tell them. This is how you do.
I hear what you're saying, but that's not it.
Right. But now being in front, it's kind of like, okay, you can't do that. So.
Well, good thing I'm retired. Because and the good thing about I think the journey sometimes is I believe that I have been placed in positions where I could get away with, like working for Sandra Moore. You know, she didn't say, don't get out of my office. Don't you know what I mean? So I've always been kind of protected. Yeah, one of my sheroes, absolutely. I hope she doesn't mind that I mentioned her, but she raised me up pretty well.
Yes.
You know, so okay, good
And that
answer.
means a lot. Like what you just said, dropping those names. Like to me, I think that helped me a lot. Like it helped you a lot. Being able to go over the people that got us here. We're standing on their shoulders. Like, and now we're in the position where people are coming to us.
Absolutely.
And that's what means a lot and is missing a lot.
And see, I don't even think I realized.
Yes.
Like when they came to me and they said, hey, do you want to work in Lincoln? I was like, oh yeah, that's cool. I'm reading this book.
Yes, you don't.
I didn't realize the depth of
Yes.
until you look at it over life and collectively. So I think that too creates a desire in individuals to serve in that capacity, to say, I know what you could be because I didn't know what I could be.
Exactly. Yep.
Not that I'm all that, but you understand what I mean.
But no, you are
At least
all
I'm
of
stable.
That. But you are all of that. Yes.
Well, I paid her to say that. So.
No, she did.
Okay, so now I'm going to let you pick a question.
For me?
And if, that you want to respond to. And if there's something, if you don't, it's some on the other page too. If you don't find anything, then you can suggest your own question. And I forget to do this every time, so I want to give a shout out to the power behind the scenes, right? What's your name, Timothy? Come on, they can hear you. Just introduce yourself. This is, I know it's not standard, but so what? Timothy.
My name is Timothy Nelson, owner of Grace Photography STL.
And he's our videographer extraordinaire. And then who do we have over here? That's work. She's not only running Zoom, but she's smiling at us when we need a smile, and she's keeping us running. So who are you, lady?
Valerie Williams.
And we don't do, go ahead, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Just Valerie Williams, working with the project in itself.
Right, we've been running around together a long time. We don't do everything traditionally. You know, if the Spirit says say this or do this, I'm going to do it. So shout out to you guys.
I'll go with 5.
Okay, we'll go with 5. Oh, okay, good. What would you like your friends or others to remember most about you, and then tell us why?
I think what I hope people remember, and I know my friends know, how passionate I am about the people, about the community, about my city, and how hard I've fought, and I will always fight for it. And because I guess my why is because I remember and will always remember for where I came from.
Right, absolutely.
And how it was always instilled on me to always go back, you know, and lift them up, you know, and fight for them as those that fought for me.
So I have a question about that, because I feel that passionately about young adults. I was awkward, you know, I didn't think I was anything at all, and so I feel that way about young adults. But I often find that it's challenging for me when we say us or we the movement, or you know what I'm saying? Because I never saw myself in that population, if that makes sense. Like I had friends that didn't look like me. The neighbors were my best friends. We knew people that were German. We knew people from all races. So we were kind of raised like that, you know. And at the time when people were suffering, we were living on on Newstead, right? And we were taking the kids on the block to Steak and Shake and stuff like that. My father was a Teamster. So though we had hard times, I just felt like I'm on the outside looking in at some of that. We picketed and it did that. You understand what I'm saying? But in terms of individual, that's the challenge for me. How do you just continue to think collective, when there's somebody over there you really want to punch in the eye, or there's somebody over there who's really, really moving for themselves, or
It's hard. That's so. I love that you asked that, because that's the hardest part for me.
Okay, well, I feel better that you said that.
It is hard, because all my life I'm completely different from you. That's crazy, because I started on Lee, 4245 Lee, in Redbud. My mom was a single
really
mom.
Close. I think you are.
My mom was a single mom for a while. People think that my dad, who we call dad, was always there, but he wasn't. He's our stepdad. But I knew what living hard was like.
Right.
You know, I was just shy of, seriously, like juvenile. Like I was that kid.
We only had one sibling that was that kid.
I knew what poverty was. You know, we was like I got it. I understood it. So I was always the seed was always planted. Treat everybody the same. Right, exactly. A janitor, you know, is no different than the president. Exactly. You know, and the president is the same. I always had that spirit in me. So that's the biggest challenge for me right now. Right. It's just what you're saying. The generation that we dealing with, somehow we've turned into being this group, this population that we're facing has become so self-serving. Yes. That we've lost.
Have you been listening to me when I'm talking? And
it's hurt. Like I'm hurt, but I have hope, you know, and that's what keeps me going. Well, like
I get that.
But the hardest thing for me is, I think my most challenging moments right now is I've always fought for so many people, and I don't have anybody fighting for me.
But you do. And I know what you're saying, because I do that too. I feel that.
You feel that time. You feel that way sometimes.
You don't know how deeply I feel that. And that's why purpose is important.
Yes.
Because if you're in line with purpose, then you understand that people fighting down here for you does not measure for somebody else.
It doesn't. You know, and so that's what you keep. And so the book book that I told you about, years ago, you have to understand, offended, the devil's,
Tricks. Yep.
what is the book I told you to read?
Oh, I read all the time.
But that was one of the strongest books that I ever read about being offended. Like, you have to understand.
Oh, yeah, it's I forgot
The
name.
bait of Satan.
Thank you.
Like
I told you to read. I can't remember.
It has a
Absolutely.
meaning, and you have to understand that. But so that's the part where I say sometimes you feel lonely, but you have to have faith
You have to have that
and
faith.
hope,
Be grounded in
and
it.
believe that people understand it. But it's different when you're fighting for yourself.
It's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
Even
Yeah.
with young adults, people, they'll share some of the stuff I've said to them, and people say, "What?"
Yeah. Yes.
But I know that I'm doing what I'm supposed to
Yes.
do, and I know that
And I'm staying the course.
spiritually, that's who I am.
Yes.
And if I'm assigned, I must have been assigned
Yes.
because of that.
And that's what
You
I
know
want
what I
my
mean?
friends and family to know. They can never say she has always fought for the people and for the community.
Right, absolutely.
So, yeah.
And you, I believe, have been selected to do that.
Yes.
Not that others haven't.
Yes.
But I think
That's been my
the older
calling.
I get, the less I'm apologizing
Yes,
for my
that's me.
for my idiosyncrasies or whatever you want to call them, or for my sharpness of tongue. And like I told them, you all are young adults. I need to be sharp.
That's
with my
right.
tongue because you've been spoiled.
That's right.
A lot of you, not
We
all
don't
of you,
owe
but
you
you've been
anything,
spoiled.
yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. You've been spoiled. People have tried to appease you for the suffering that has come before, and sometimes you just need somebody to say, you need to do it.
Get it together.
And I'm not going to put up with you being less than I
That's
know
right.
you can be. I have to show up every day.
That's right.
The best I can show.
And
so
so
you need
do
to
you.
learn how to do
Yep.
that. Right. So I think that's valuable.
Yep.
Absolutely. Wow.
Yes.
I already knew. I already knew when I knew that when I was working with caring communities with your mom and you came along. I already knew. I saw it.
Yep.
It's hard to be a person who has been raised with a gift, I'll call it.
Yes,
right?
yeah.
A gift to position people so that they are independent and so that they do make better choices.
Yep.
And I think that's the hardest job in the world.
It is.
And so I'm not going to, I tell them all the time, the Spirit tells me to say it the way I say it. I'm
Yes.
not going to baby step you. I'm not going to coddle you.
That's right.
I don't want to be totally offensive, but I think it's an emergency. We have an
Especially
emergency
now,
situation.
we do.
And I can't say, oh, but baby, you should try. No, I can't
No.
say that
No.
because that's not working. So, and you can tell by the popularity of your work and what you do that people can handle the truth.
And they think I'm mean, but I'm not mean.
They say that, but
Yeah.
they want you to say what you
yes,
say to them.
Yes, because what I'm saying, everybody else is thinking it. I'm just the one that just,
Exactly.
listen,
Yeah,
honey,
to the club,
stop
right.
it, baby. Don't do that. Don't do
Yeah,
that. So,
exactly. Right, exactly. And then I have with the gift that I have, sometimes people say, "You said that," and I say, and I believe, if I'm not, I'm in trouble. But I say it exactly how I hear it.
Yes.
Because some situations are emergency, and I don't have time
That's
to
true.
coddle.
I like that. I'm going to have to use that. Some situations are emergencies.
They are.
You
They
need
are.
to hear this
You
now.
can't put a Band-Aid on it.
No,
You
no,
know,
that's
you
true.
have to stitch it up and sew it up and do all that. So
That's right.
You have to show up as you're supposed to.
That's
show up.
right.
Good job. Good job. So what's in store? What are your you don't have to reveal all of your stuff. but what are your sights
right now,
set on? And not immediate, just long.
Well,
term.
right now, I know that I'm being moved to go back to the basics, back to what I was doing, implementing, creating the programs from the community from which I was from, going back to building more homes and working with
Good.
businesses. 20 years ago, I was part of building like 100 and some homes within the North Corridor, and those homes are now back in the ownership of Riverview West Florissant, and that's, who would have thought that that's now my ownership. So now I'm
Right.
moving back in that direction and creating programs now where I'm hiring youth again, and everything we've talked about, I think God is like, this is where you need to go back. Like, this is where this is my purpose. To go back
Absolutely.
and touch those lives, to say, listen.
And isn't that funny how that happens? You get in the middle here, and you say, man, maybe I'm off. I'm crying a lot.
Yeah.
I'm stressed. I'm feeling out of place a little bit. Maybe I wasn't supposed to do this. And then you hang in there, and then the next level up comes, and you're like,
This,
but it's not linear. That's the
No.
challenge. It's not, purpose is not, well, my purpose is to do this.
Yeah.
No, purpose is not linear like that. And it has, would you say that? Would you agree
it
with that?
is.
It has a lot of different steps,
and that's
a
what I
lot
was
of
going to say,
different
because
situations.
now I'm in a position where all that I've learned, all that I've done, now I'm in a position where it's people under me, other nonprofits, that I'm able to come in and say,
Absolutely.
this is what you need to do.
Yep.
This is how you do it, and I'm not telling you what I think. I'm
Right.
telling you what I know because it worked. And I have the opportunity. So that's what you're saying, I'm on this level to now be able to come to build you up and transform not just this neighborhood,
Right.
but this neighborhood, this neighborhood. So yes.
And I used to be really challenged by that because I would do something progressive but small, and it wouldn't flourish. And then somebody would just co-opt my idea, and then I see the members like,
That was my,
but that's the job,
yeah, yes,
right?
yes.
When I finally began to understand that's this particular job, not everybody's job, but that's our job.
Yes.
Our job is to introduce it and walk away from
Yep.
it and watch other people.
Watch it grow.
Yeah.
Plant the
So-
seed and watch it grow.
And that's a tough one too.
But I love, but
I like it.
I'm so in my element now, because guess what? I'm behind the scenes.
For a minute. Anyway. For a minute. Anyway. You did a really good job of being in front of the scenes too, so we'll see. Yeah. I know what you mean. I mean, I was behind the scenes for a long time, and this started out as just we need a space, and then I did a few things in the pulpit, and I just couldn't get comfortable. I wasn't feeling right. We had some people that came the first couple of meetings, and this is what it evolved
Came
to.
out of it.
I think that we're going to wrap up in a minute, but I think we do a disservice when the only people get to hear from are people who are such in high authority you'll never see them. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? So I just like to mine what's in our communities.
Yes.
Or even what's in, it may be other people that are in West County. I don't care. If you're doing something progressive, if you're doing something to better humankind, and that's what I think one of my gifts is.
Yes.
Is that I'm not, of course I'm pro people of color. I mean, I'm of color.
Exactly.
But I
open
also
to
have the ability,
humans.
I have the ability to move in and out of those lanes. And I think that's probably a natural ability.
It is.
So is there anything else that you want to share with, oh man, I knew it. I mean, sometimes you just know. Sometimes you ask people and you say, well, I hope it works out. But sometimes you really, really know. And I was sitting there saying, okay, and before I could say who's next, you came to mind. So I'm so glad we got a chance to do this. I'm going to give you the last word. Let me see if I can find a question for you. If I was to ask you what you'd like to, if you could see 30 days from now or 60 days from now, or even when you sat down, what would you like to be your legacy, or what would you like to be working in? You could take either of those angles. You could say, well, in 60 days, I'd like to do this, or you can say, when I settle down, I'd like this to be my legacy.
I know that I want my legacy to be, as I stated,
Yeah, you said it.
that she continue and always fought, for change, for all, like what we're saying, like just for mankind, just for people to see that there is good across the board, and everyone should have a fair treatment across the board.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you again, man. This has been amazing. So we'll go, thank you. We'll go to questions. Valerie, do you have any questions?
Yes, a couple of questions here. One, what high school did you attend?
Afton High
Afton.
School.
Oh, yeah, that was a change.
That was change.
Like culture shock.
Completely culture shock, yes.
And I asked that because you said you were part of the DSEG program, but you made a very valid point that in attending Afton, it took you out of your hood.
Totally.
And when I say it took you out of the hood, it took you out of the hood not just physically, but mentally.
Yes.
Right.
And so that was a learning thing. And a lot of times, we are afraid to venture.
Yes.
We want to stick with what we know.
Yes.
So we're afraid to venture out of that. So
Okay.
great job there and the encouragement to keep moving forward. Let's see, another question here. You mentioned about talking with young people, and a lot of times they tend to think that you just got in your current position. You know, they never think about older adults
The stair step, you know.
that you grew up. They never think about how you grew up or anything. They just think, you don't know what I'm talking about. You know, you didn't grow up like I did. How do you relate to them?
So what I didn't talk about is I actually, from Caring Communities to Riverview West Florissant, I went on to work, I ran an alternative school called Am I Kids at Beaumont High School.
Okay.
And it was funny because that was initially, you know, what they would say, and we would have assemblies. And when I first introduced myself to the students, these were trouble kids. These were kids that they were kicked out for fighting, drugs, what have you. So my job was to kind of get them on the right track. And I would meet with them, and back then I would say, Google me. You know, if you want to know who I am, you know, Google me or whatever. And so one of the kids was like, man, do y'all know our principal built the 4-9? You know, because the homes that I built were on Beacon, Alcott, and Davidson. And so they, you know, we started talking, and they was like, no, you know, Miss Cousins ain't no joke. Like, you know, Miss Cousins is the real deal. And I started kind of sharing with them, I was you. You know, I was you as a kid, but I had opportunities and choices that I took different paths, and you could do it too. So I followed a lot of those children. I lost some, but I saved, you know, some were saved, some, you know, one of them a lot of them I followed on, some went to college, some are still, you know, working. I still keep in communication with them to this day, and the parents or what have you. So, yeah, that's how I was relating to them. And it wasn't just talk. I didn't talk the talk. You know, I talked it, I walked it. I would go into the neighborhoods. I would go to their home, knock on the door, like what Nina's saying. I'm knocking on the door. Why you not at school? Let's go. Get up in here. What we doing here? Like, you know, when the kids were walking through the door, I'm the first face they see. Right. Give me a look. Give me a hug. What's going on? You high? What you high for? We not doing this. You know, I was that mother figure, but still focusing on what was important for them. So they hadn't experienced that in regular school, and that kind of changed the game for a lot of the students I was working with.
Wow.
Good job.
Very true indeed. And thank you so much. As you guys
No, right. It's tough. Good job.
It is tough, but it's good for them to know.
Yes.
Look, I didn't just pop up.
No, I had to work to get to where I was, and yeah, a lot of them see that. A lot of your children, young adults, see that you're in the space that you're in, and they like, ooh, I want to be like you. No, you got to work for where I am, and you have to, you know, I put in a lot to get to the space that I got to. I had to get a degree. I had, you know, I had student loans like everybody else.
Yeah,
you know, none of this
exactly.
I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth once I was able to get the things I was able to get. So.
And you know, I think one of the challenges is not to look for results quickly.
Right.
Because you may never ever hear from, you know, students.
That's right.
After you. I had a young lady that was from another country in my class, in my English class at St. Louis Community College. And she had graduated and everything, it's gone. And one day she looked me up and she said that I made her comfortable. She's from Afghanistan or something. She said I made her comfortable walking in her feelings.
Yes.
Because they don't do feelings.
No.
So I want to commit, even though you can't track it, I'm absolutely sure you probably got 20 times as many young adults that have been impacted. Yeah, that's so.
Because you remember me.
That's right, exactly.
One of my students, I
That
have
is
to tell this
beautiful.
story.
Go ahead.
This one just moved me. One of my students at an alternative school that I ran, I was somewhere, and he was like, "It's because you don't remember me." And I was like, "Your face looks familiar." Harding, I could say his name. I said, "Your face." He's a grown man now. I said, "Your face looks familiar." Listen, y'all, he's in uniform. And I said, "Your face looks familiar." He said, "I graduated from your program." He said, "I'm a police officer."
Because your husband, right?
"I work for your husband." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes."
That's funny. That's full circle.
4 years later, he was promoted to sergeant.
That's full circle.
So I know that I'm doing
Absolutely.
the work
absolutely.
that I've been called to do. So,
And the tension helps you know.
yes,
Sometimes.
yes.
All right.
Well, we have a question
thank-
from
oh,
the
okay.
Zoom audience here. What advice would you give, and you've talked on this off and on, but what advice would you give young adults who want to get out of survival mode and become more purpose focused?
You have to, the biggest thing that I've had to do is follow your gut, and really follow your mind, get out of, I say this to myself a lot of times, and you have to say it to yourself, block the noise. Get away from the noise, because a lot of times the noise can get in your way of what you're really trying to do and wanting to do. So once you notice and recognize the noise, and something that, like, I've had a lot of loss that made me understand, that kind of prepared me for a lot of things that I've been able to do. So what I mean by, get out of the noise, like try to set that aside, it's a verse that always has stood with me and helped me, and that is be still sometimes, and just literally be still, be silent, and just listen to that inner voice, and that'll move you forward.
That's good. That's absolute. That's my verse, by the way. That's mine.
It helps you. It helped me through a lot.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Awesome.
And I have to do that because
Yeah.
I've never. I mean, I'm.
You
like,
have to be still.
2000.
Yeah, when you all over, you just take a minute, and I had to do that. Sometimes I'm being honest. For me, I will go into a deep stage where I'm just at a dark space, and some just click like stop.
Right. That's good.
Take a moment.
Yeah.
Assess the situation, block it out, focus on what you're here to do,
That's good,
and it'll get you
Toni.
going.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good.
And then
stuff.
lastly, the other question was, and you've also spoken on this too, but I wanted her question to be read. How would you encourage young adults who grew up in the hood to see themselves differently than the negative stigmas that are said about them being born, raised in the hood?
Get out of it. Get out of the hood. What I mean,
I hear you. I know
let me tell you what I mean by that.
Come on.
Something that I've done, we talked about it, and I never thought I would be able to do it, but I've gone on mission trips. Like, who would have thought I would be in Afghanistan, out in Albania? And I'm not saying you can do that, but I had the opportunity to be in spaces and places that I never imagined I would be in. And I had one of my I call him a little brother. He called me. Oh my God, this question is excellent. He called me 2 days ago, and I'm gonna get emotional. And he's now in a space where a lot of people that he's around are millionaires. And he was homeless. He was homeless as a kid, as a young adult, or whatever. So he has all of that. But he's in a whole different space right now. And he called me, and he was like, I'm so lost because I'm in this space, and why am I here? How am I here? And I'm used to being here. I'm used to the hood. I'm used to this. Like, how do I balance this?
Right.
And I said, never forget who you are or what you are. And you, wherever you are, you still are representing us all. But still don't forget you. And he said, that's why I'm calling you. Because I need that foundation and to stay grounded. I don't want to lose sight of who I am. I don't want to be in a position and in this space where I'm so caught up in this moment that I don't know who I am no longer. Never let the hood, never be embarrassed about where you came from or what. I'll tell anybody, any day I'm from Walnut Park, to the day I die. Because Walnut Park built me. It made me. But it still can't consume me. So don't ever let that take, can't nobody take where you from away from you. But it still can build you. It makes a difference.
And that's a really good question because I have both too, but I just show up as Nina.
Yeah.
Sometimes I say it wrong, sometimes I come differently, but if I'm in the room with you, you're gonna get Nina.
Yeah, but it's hard for the young adults now. And one thing and what I mean by that is some of our young adults are like what I used to do when I was at Caring Communities,
is some of our kids have never been off Beacon.
Right,
Or
right.
all they know is that block. So I would take the kids on field trips when it was the Mississippi River, the flood came, and they had never seen it. Or I would take
Right.
them to Six Flags. Like I'm saying, expose them to, that's what I mean by get out. You know, see other things outside of what's just right in front of you. Have that other level of exposure. And that's what happens when I went, you know, to Afton, or when I went away to college in Warrensburg, because that's a whole different world. Ooh, honey.
Yeah.
That was the bird. That was the country. You see?
Yeah, that's like halfway.
But yeah,
distance.
that's what I mean by that.
Awesome.
I think, they didn't ask me, but I do want to respond to that, because for me, I think my biggest challenge was showing up as me.
Yes.
I understand there's protocols, I understand you have to
Yes.
do something different, but if I had to go in every room I've
And
been
I say
in
that, yes.
and not be me,
Yep. That's what I
then
told
it
him.
wouldn't have worked.
That's what I said to
So,
him. They love
yeah.
who you are.
And whatever
That's why
I
you
am,
there.
if I'm 90% Park Lane or Lee,
That's
and I'm
right.
10%, I'm still supposed to
I'm
be there.
still me,
So
yeah.
I'm going to show up
Yeah.
as me, which is sometimes good, sometimes not. But it is what it is.
That's
it's
true.
easier for me than
That's
stressing
right.
out.
Exactly.
So, you know.
But pretending to be something you're not.
Absolutely,
Don't
absolutely.
ever do that. Yes.
I used to measure my speed. Oh, did I say that word right there?
I got to the point.
I don't even. That's what I'm saying. I'm not.
Did you say that? Sure did.
Because the value you bring has nothing to do so much with how you bring it. It's that you're bringing it.
That's right.
And I try to say, just show up as you. If you keep showing up as you, then the other stuff will fall in place.
That's right.
But if you have to practice every time you go in a room,
That's right.
then you're never gonna get it. So good job, good job. Ooh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I think we're probably about ready to wrap up. Good stuff. You're gonna have to come back, man. You have to come back. Thank you guys for just giving us the opportunity to hopefully share and impart wisdom and gain wisdom, and to just say, make your life work.
Yes.
You have no options. You can't shut down. You can't quit. You got to make it work with where you are and where you're going. So good night and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.